We're
We're
live, finally.
live. Wow.
Uh,
Yay.
wow. Hey,
Once
hey,
again,
guys.
humbled by technology. I am humbled
Right.
by
So,
Oh,
technology. Yes.
for those of you who are curious why we're jumping on a little late, our apologies. We were having some technical issues, but we just want to wish everyone a happy AAPI Heritage Month, and we're getting the month started off strong with some special guests here. But before we introduce them, just wanted to kind of uh, give you a preview of what's coming up this month. Again, this is a celebration of Asian American Pacific Islander heritage in the comic book community. And this just runs across creatives, obviously YouTube creators, and as well as just community members. So, hoping we get a lot of engagement, and we've got a really great pair of guests here. We have Stephen Yoon and Seth Singleton joining us to promote the third installment of Joan. So yeah, I'm just gonna let you guys kind of introduce yourselves, and then we'll get the conversation started. So yeah, Stephen, you wanna go first?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Stephen Yu. I am a comic book illustrator and also author and artist of my graphic novel series, Joan, loosely based on Joan of Arc. And it's been a project that I've been working on for the past 9 years. It's influenced by a lot of things that I love. Hong Kong martial arts movies of like the 80s and 90s, Hollywood blockbusters, anime, uh, westerns. It's just all that combined into one like Duck Press comic graphic novel series. And I'm teaming up with Seth, and Seth's been like the producer slash little development writer on the project and on this third book. And yeah, it's great to be working with him.
Wonderful. And now we have Seth. Go ahead and yeah, introduce yourself to our audience.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I'm a writer of many things, including comic books and comic strips. I also work for currently a political campaign, the Green Party out in Maryland. I dabble and I stay busy. But one of the things that I love is meeting inspirational creators, someone who has passion, drive, and has taken that with a project and pursued not only a chance to complete the project, but also to talk about things that are very important to the here and now, but also have so many timeless values woven in. And that's one of the great things about partnering up with Steve on Joan.
Yeah, wonderful. So let's start with how you two came about. Yeah, how did this collaboration partnership come about?
Seth will probably fill in with the details. I usually give like a general like overview. We met in I think it was like 2022. I was in Alameda doing CarrierCon, and Seth was talking to my friend Nick Pino, who had a table there. He does all this like kaiju art, and then I think Seth was talking to Pino about art, comics, and my friend Nick Pino, referred Seth to me, and then we met, we talked, and then later we talked online, and we're just kind of like conversing about projects and stuff. And it just never seemed like I don't know, it just always seemed like I had stuff that I was working on, so it just never seemed like there was the right project for us. And then we went that direction of like, let's just hang out, let's just be really good friends, let's just talk about all the things that like interest us. And then through like this, I don't know, what are we now, like 4 years of like this budding friendship, we realized, oh, we're pretty much on the same page with a lot of things. And we're like, okay, let's create this project. And we have one that we've been working on, which is an anthropomorphic story that has all this like themes of colonialism, imperialism, what it means to be just kind of like like who your true family is, and but even that just seemed like there was like a lot of work, and I was like working on so many things. And now with Joan, I'm like, wait, I'm currently working on this, and Seth and I talk a lot about the themes in this book. Why not just team up on this project? So I had to kind of like, there's that ego, right? You have as a creator, and you're like, I could do it all, but that doesn't seem possible. That's not realistic. So it comes to the point where I think Seth probably read on my face is like, wow, this guy's stressed out all the time. So Seth offered to help out, and through, you know, just kind of like the working on this crowdfunding campaign right now, we're realizing, oh wow, there's actually a lot that we could split the task on. And as a result of that, I just realized, wow, I love working with this guy. Not only are we on the same page about a lot of things, but there's also the vulnerability too component, which I think is important, especially for men working on projects. It's just like, let go of the ego and let's really hash it out. Let's talk about, you know, like what we're really feeling. And it's liberating actually to find a friend that could also be like a work partner too. So Seth is awesome. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, that's great. Seth, what about you? What would you add to what Steven said?
That's pretty tough to follow up, but I do want to go back to that first moment. Was CarrierCon. I was really captivated. You know, Steve and Nick together, pretty impressive powerhouse. Like side by side, it was like the 1-2 punch. So I remember, like, you know, Nick was kind of setting me up, and I'm glancing over at Steve's stuff, and I'm like, yeah, tell me about your neighbor. He seems like he's got really cool stuff. He's like, yeah, you know, Steve and I have known each other for a while. You should check out his Joan book. So I came over, I talked to him. And it was interesting. The whole time we were talking, there was this awareness of like, yeah, I do podcasting and I enjoy interviewing creators and talking about the creative process and craft with them and storytelling. But that when we scheduled a time to sit down and talk, I was like, look, before we even get to that, you seem like an artist who might be a kindred spirit. So can I pitch you some ideas and just get your feedback? And I did. And then I said, look, I understand if, you know, that's all you want to have this conversation include, or if you want to schedule a podcast or however you'd like things to continue. But I felt that I would start it by being, and I think this is one of the things Steve pointed out just a minute ago, being vulnerable and saying, hey, you're another artist. You're someone whose work I admire. I want to sort of test that relationship with you with a couple of ideas, get your feedback, and then see what our conversation's like afterwards. And that led to a series of conversations where I think also Steve could bring up ideas he was working on in Joan as he was, he completed Joan Volume 2 was coming up on completion as we were talking about Volume 3. And then I'm going to add one other detail to it, which is Steve, your wife had a role to play in this. At some point, I got a phone call from Steve and he was like, hey, there's some stuff that you have to do as a creator in order to find funds and find access and other things that just drive me up the wall. But as we've talked about it, it's something that you've navigated and figured out how to do. What if we could put your skills to use towards this project? And we can talk about how we could, you know, look for opportunities, but then also see how they mesh together with an upcoming Kickstarter I have and how much of a role you would like to play in that. So I was really grateful. I stopped and said, okay, well, one, I appreciate whatever you see me doing that makes you think that this is something that I can help with. And I love your project. I'm very passionate every time we've talked about your characters and your story. So I'm emotionally invested. Rachel had it figured out. She knew exactly what she was doing, asking me to get involved. And then we just hammered out what would be important to get finished for the projects that we have in mind. And also what part of those Steve was comfortable letting me take over, where he still wanted to maintain, you know, one, he's the creator of this IP from the beginning. So how much of that he wants to continue having as much hands-on to do with. And then at what point he might want to transfer some of those responsibilities. But essentially it's like, hey, look, why instead of turning to do this task all the time, we don't, you know, instead let you focus on these tasks and these ones over here, I take over. And that became this shared relationship about how is it that I can step in and help? And also doing my best to look for opportunities to say, hey, that sounds like it's a bit of work. It sounds like it's a struggle. Either I've done this before or I don't mind it. And this is where I just include the story that when I was a kid playing soccer, when one of my teammates had a knot in their laces, I was always so happy to go, yeah, let me see that. I love this. And I would go through it because there was a satisfaction in knowing that there is no knot that cannot be undone, right? So find it, dig in, and then discovery along the way taught me how to do knots. And it's just something I enjoy doing. So being able to put some things I enjoy doing towards a great work like Joan with a story and a character and so many things that I love and want to support as well as champion. Yeah, it was an easy yes. It was an easy yes.
Wonderful. Yeah. I mean, obviously with the collaboration and partnership that there's always, projects to navigate in terms of rules and whatnot, but let's jump right into Joan, Volume 3. I've got it kind of loaded up here. Give me a second here.
Sure.
No problem. It's a great splash page to start out with. I mean, that's just there it is. That's Steve's amazing art right there. And then boom, we jump right over to Volume 3. Lovely.
So yeah, this series is kind of it. There's a lot of sort of action, a lot of violence. It's not really oriented for young people or young children, I would imagine. How would you kind of, if someone's coming to Joan for the first time, how would you introduce what they can expect with this read?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I've thought about that a lot. So addressing the first thing, that was actually one of the issues I had was like, okay, how do we, where does this fit in? And I'll be honest with you, I've had a lot of trouble just trying to figure out just where Joan can thrive. When you're doing something like a pop culture, like comic book convention, it can be tough because people are really there. They know what they're looking for. The independent creators can have like a tough time. And that's a real like struggle, I will say, however, it's when I went to Reno Punk Flea. So I'm based out of Reno right now, and they have this really great punk art fair where it's like anything goes. I mean, it's great. It's like, you have rock bands performing. They have, you can smash a car with a sledgehammer for charity. It's just so badass, And there's like, just people selling their wares, but doing stuff that's just very unconventional. And I do fairly well at this Punk Flea. And it was there that, so I've done it like 2 years now. And I realized there's something about Joan that's very much like a tank girl. And in fact, someone came to my table and said, "Oh, it's medieval tank girl." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, actually, that's actually right. That's so right." And I never myself identify with like the punk scene, but very much of their philosophies of like the DIY, the going against the establishment, stuff like that. It really resonates within me. And it was really until Volume 3, through talking to Seth a lot, working on the book, getting it down, I started to realize this actually is really what Joan is about. Joan is about this whole the existential right of like a human being. The human being that's trying to fight against those who tell you who you can and cannot be. The very things that she fights against actually mirror what I fight against. And so, it's like there is violence, there's action, but I like to think of it like it's a smattering of like, it's just the duck press of all these things, but the heart of it, I think, is pretty universal. And maybe it's, people who are a little more, I don't know, maybe the edginess will attract people who like, appreciate that edginess. But I think the story there For anybody who resonates with this concept of like self-determination, rebelling against like whatever, not just like rebelling against like the world, but whatever, like maybe they have family members who told them they can't be this. Maybe they run into, people at work or somebody in their lives who's just telling them not to do something when they know that, hey, maybe I should pursue this on my own. Because the original story came from that angst that I was feeling as an artist. It was like, okay, instead of chasing after the things that's trending right now, can I be myself? Is there a space I can carve out for myself as an independent creator? And I think all these themes that I write about a lot, and I draw a lot of it, which is, self-determination, revolution, self-revolution, rebellion, all these things, even like self-autonomy. I think for people who are really interested in those themes, I think Joan would be right up their alley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Seth, you had a large part to do with the volume 3. What was your take, and what did you bring to the project for this? What I'm assuming is the final chapter. Are we doing more?
There is more to come. I mean, one of the great things about Joan is you can walk away fully satisfied and wanting more at the end of each volume. And that's the design that we have created. In fact, when this is all done, when all volumes are complete, you should have that same feeling, just like any great work. There are certain books, I'm sure not only those here with us right now that are on the screen, but any of those who are currently watching have favorite books that they love to go back and reread again and again and again. So this is certainly not the end, but we don't want to give away too much about what's coming. But speaking to the ideas that are present in Joan and that Steve's talking about in volume 3, but that he's also talked about in volume 1, volume 2, what I love to add to it is the insider role. I grew up in a very conservative religious environment in which there were clear ideas about what you do and don't do, what is right, what is wrong. And as I got older, I started to question and challenge those because my compass for right and wrong didn't align with the establishment I was growing up in. Eventually, it led to a division. Now, because of that, I also can understand those who stayed. I have family who stayed. I have friends who stayed. I have friends who were not fans of it, who have become members of different religious groups that I can say, okay, that's the choice that you made. And I can understand that because I grew up in it. I understand the attractions, the appeals, and I also understand how difficult it is to step away from that. It's like choosing to become a drop of water after you've lived in the ocean. How do you understand yourself without that reference of identity? But also how it is then you can look at the ocean as something, it's wonderful and powerful, but it can also dehydrate you if you spend too long. It can crush you with a wave when you're not looking. It is a force. And it's something that can do as much good as destruction, right? When it's channeled by someone who has a very clear idea of what is right and wrong, like someone like King Henry, we see just how dangerous and disastrous it is. And I loved Steve's spirit about who Joan is. I mean, what he's talking about with the idea of, sure, medieval tank girl. Yes, I can get on board with that idea. But also what I can see in Joan is the spirit of everyone. And actually, Steve, as you were talking, I was reminded how much Joan represents the spirit of every creator. It's something that we've come up where it's like, look, if you're great, you will be discovered, you will be identified, you will be raised up, and you will be one of the rare select few. And that's it. It's either that or accept the mundane existence. Those are your choices. That's what's available to you. To choose to carve out something else different makes you an explorer and a pathfinder, but it doesn't make it easy. There is no route to follow. There's examples of others who've made it to heights they'd like to reach, but how they got there, it's it's not the same from everyone, mostly because we all start in different places. So I think what I also loved about that is that Joan is choosing to not only stand for herself and those who were betrayed, but for those she's discovering, where she's saying, yeah, you don't have to choose between this or that, that you either get on board or you are always considered enemy, other, outsider, failure, sin, unwanted, undesired, all of those negative classifications. So I feel that there is so much that I can relate to from what I grew up in, but also no one told me how to figure out as a writer. Most people said, "Oh, you poor thing, you're a writer. Oh goodness, how are your parents? Do you eating enough? Can we give you?" It's this sort of like, wow, what a terrible. I almost felt like maybe I should have said, like, yeah, I think I'm going to become a monk who lives off of only donations and begging on the street. Like, there was this sense of like, I don't know why you're doing this to yourself, and I'm so saddened for you. I actually met, there's a well-known literary writer, Ethan Kanan, and I met his mother at a job I was working, and she said, "Oh, Seth, I almost named my son that." I'm looking at her last name, and I'm like, "You're Ethan Kanan's mom." And she looked at me, she goes, "Oh, you poor thing, you're a writer, aren't you?" And I was like, yes, I am. I wish you did. I said, you're Ethan Kanan's mom. She goes, "Yeah." I go, "Why did you say that to me, though? Your son has really reached great pinnacles." And she goes, "Yes, and for all that, he and all of your lives are filled with such uncertainty, and no mother wants that." And as much as I can appreciate that, I also have a really great therapist, and I was talking with them this morning during a session, and we were talking about how the school where I work at, you can see that little banner up on the wall behind me, Siena Heights. I'm going to be turning in my final grades for them next week, and that school will be closing after 105 years of existence. Some of the things that were paths that I could pursue creatively aren't available to me anymore. And in the meantime, I'm creating new paths, including the ones that Steve and I are creating through Joan and the projects that we're building together. Mm-hmm. But uncertainty doesn't have to mean, oh, doom and gloom, abject, oh, wanton, despair, sackcloth and ashes, whatever example you choose to embrace. What it can mean so much is a willingness to be just a little bit defiant in the face of all those saying, "What are you doing?" And go, "I'm doing it. Just keep watching," right? So with Steve, with Joan, with anyone who is keeping lit that creative spark, and they're doing their best to try and find a way to turn it into something that burns and sustains. Mm-hmm. Joan is a story for them. Joan speaks to all of those ideas, but also I feel right now for so many are feeling like eyes are being turned against them, and that opinions are being shaped to cast them as villainous and otherwise, simply because someone's declaring it so or looking for causes to point anger and frustration at. I feel Joan speaks to all of them as well, because, not everyone's thrilled that she's here or that she's come back to life or that she's continuing her mission. And yet none of those are good enough reasons for Joan to stop what she's doing. I'm going to pause for a second there. I kind of got on a spin.
No,
that's one of the other reasons Steve loved bringing me along. when he gets me going, man, he's just sitting back taking notes and I start cooking. So there's that other part that I love to bring to the equation, because Joan, she speaks to that fire in me. She speaks to that fire that's always burning. And I feel like when I'm talking about her, it's like, oh yeah, hold on, little gas. Yeah. Okay, step back, watch the bloom.
I do feel like there's between the previous volumes and this volume, just kind of looking at it from an aesthetic standpoint, there's it's different. The art style changed a bit. Stephen, can you talk to, like, was it the writing that helped evolve that style?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I have like 13 different thoughts because of that question. I'm gonna let's pick one to start from. So when I originally worked on Joan, I mean, the first issue was all kind of just an emotional experiment. It was 2017. I was working in SoCal, and I don't know. It just much like what Seth was saying, just I felt like my career was determined by other people, and I may have been pursuing something that I think someone else wanted, but not what I wanted at all. And so when I first started working on the first Joan, it was just kind of like I was just drawing every day, and I just was coming up with whatever. I mean, I had apply for something, and it didn't work out. And I said to myself, okay, I'm going to work on a random story here. It's going to be 2 knights, and they're just in a duel. And then I just decided one of the knights pulls out a sword, and the other knight pulls out a gun, and it's going to be Joan of Arc. And I remember telling a friend that, my late friend, Dennis Rule, who was just an amazing martial arts actor and stuntman and filmmaker. And him and I like laughed and we riffed on it, and it just got absurd. And I was like, this is where I'm happy. I'm happy creating. I'm happy doing the things that I want to do. And sorry, maybe it isn't about chasing after the money. Maybe it isn't about chasing after the trends. Maybe it's just create, because I'm an artist. I have to make that decision. You can draw this way, you can draw the other way. I don't know. You're an artist. Sooner or later, there's no parameters. There's no project briefs given. You're just going to have to exercise pure creative freedom. So the first book was totally created in this like weird experimental phase, punk rock. It just was very punk rock. 2018 happens, and you know, things in my life influenced the art too. My dad passes away in 2018, so I'm like angry and grieving. I have all these complex feelings. 2020 happens. I lose my job in SoCal and I'm forced to kind of relocate. And for, you know, people say, oh, we were locked down for 3 months. No, I feel like we're locked down for like a year, and we're all inside. And that back-to-back angst, you don't really care about what the art's going to look like. You care more about just getting that raw energy out there. Second book, I felt like there's more frustrations. I feel like my career is starting to take off as an independent illustrator. I feel like, you know, I have a little more control over what I want, but I had like 5 projects fall in my lap, which I'm you know, super grateful for, but it was like I'm still not calibrating Joan to where I want to be. And now, fast forward 9 years later, I'm working on Joan Volume 3. I just finished the inks, by the way, about 2 weeks ago. So now I'm just working on color. And I was like, I don't know, I felt like I could pour myself into this now. I feel like as the story is being honed, so is the art. And now I know Joan back and forth. I know what her real problem is. The other character there that's with her, Apollo, I know more about that character too as well. So it's like the world is becoming more and more refined. It's the punk rock, the angst is still there, but it's like growing up. It's like you start to realize, oh, I need to refine, finesse the message just a little bit, and it'll be better. You know, interesting fact. This is. I was really angry when this first happened at Emerald City, and now I can look back at it laughing. So there was this poor girl. She bought Volume 1 and had no idea what she was getting herself into. And I even did the pitch, but I think she was just excited because it was Joan of Arc. And I'm refining the message now that it's loosely based on Joan of Arc, but she thought it was the Joan of Arc. So without seeing that it's explicit content, and you know, without really paying too much attention to the cover, she bought it. She comes back about 30 minutes later. She's in tears. I kid you not, in tears. And she says, I feel bad. I don't want my money back. I just want to give you back the book because I don't read explicit material. And I remember I was like, so like, you know, it's just that artist angst, right? You're just like so angry. You're like, you know what? Screw you, F you. You know, you don't get what I'm doing. But I was like, no, actually, I kind of like it. The first book is just energy. It's all just energy. I mean, the end sequence, the fight sequence, where Joan's just getting pummeled by these three sorcerers, and she has, like, you know, even though she has guns, they have magic, and she's still not able to, like, really defeat them. And all of her martial arts, fighting, combat ability is just based on sheer, like, aggression. There's no finesse. And I was like, oh, this is me. And then the best part is, just like the way I would do things, instead of finding like a refined way, I'm talking about myself back then, instead of finding like a refined way to like find a solution, she just uses just more aggression. So she unleashes all these grenades, which is called the Lord Orgasm. And she releases all these grenades and just blows herself up along with, you know, taking out the enemy, which you'll find in the second book that actually was not smart, because it did affect her power meter, much like Spawn. And but I was like, I don't know, just the first book is weird. It's all over the place. The story, I had Kerry Carter at King Kong Comics, great dude, great dude. But he read it, he goes, man, I'm trying to figure out where the story's going. And I was like, great, that's awesome, because that's what the first book is. It's just purely experimental. And long tangent, but just I'll keep it short. I think about Eon Flux from Liquid Television. You had no idea where Eon Flux was going. And if you talk to Peter Chung today, he actually is very, very analytical about what Eon Flux was. And he even says in the, I think it's in the director's commentary on the DVD, he will say, I usually don't like to talk a lot about it because I tend to overanalyze. So I'll leave it up to you guys, you know? And so I feel that way. It's like, look, I can articulate now. I know what that was. That was just punk energy.
Yeah.
But with the upcoming books, it's still there, but expect a very, I think Volume 2 sets it up where it starts to become very narrative driven. And I think less like Tarantino now, in terms of the writing. I thought the first book was just a homage to that, Hong Kong cinema, Sergio Leone Westerns, Tank Girl. But now, as we get into the third book, I'm reminded of Blue Eye Samurai and how that plays out, you know? So actually, it's funny. It's like a lot of, I've had people come to me and go, oh, wow, this is just like Blue Eye Samurai. I go, yeah, actually, very similar. So.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I mean, I think anybody who creates something, you know, when the critical nature of putting your work out there to the public, right? When that becomes something you have to address or deal with, it changes. It can, you know, for better or worse, it can have an effect on your process, on the way you approach the next chapter or the next thing. There's a great interview between Hayao Miyazaki and Akira Kurosawa, two legendary directors in Japanese cinema, one in film, one in animation. But they're talking about how they both hated talking about their projects to the media.
Yeah.
Because it was like they had to, it was like for them, they knew what they were creating, but to have to like talk about it and find some kind of, you know, interesting like publicity point to like, you know, create buzz and do all this. It's like for them, that was the challenging part of the whole process. It was just like dealing with critics, dealing with like, you know, promoting the because at the end of the day, it's a commercial product, right? It's for them, it's creative, but for the people that are making the money off it. It's a commercial venture. So
Mhm.
just, wondering, I want to bring Seth into and bring his thoughts in, because you obviously, Seth, you had a lot of ideas coming into it, and it looks like it kind of brought new energy to this project. So what was your take on bringing the new chapter and keeping it relevant to what its core identity was?
Well, I think the first thing that I kept in mind was, and it's something that I was thinking about just now as Steve was talking about Volume 1. If you look through Volume 1, and I mean, one, just look at the cover. You'll notice some elements, especially with the colors. It's quite muted. It has these like really great elements of the palette, but they also feel like there's a tone, a filter. And I feel like so much of that filter is Joan. She's traumatized. She is the most complete version of trauma you can experience, which is to come back to life fully aware of all of the suffering you went through right before you died. And within a short enough time period to turn around and still be so hot with anger to do something about that. So I feel so much about Volume 1 and even 2 is just her exploding with that first raw anger. And it's really hard to pay attention to a lot when you're angry. It's almost like doing physical labor. At the end of the day, you're like, I want to use my higher functions, but I've sacrificed the energy available, right? I can't access that because so much of me is channeled into. And when you look at Joan in Volume 1, so much of her is channeled into just this, like she's empowered and she's angry and she's lashing out over and over again. And by the end of Volume 1, you're like, wow, like so many people at some point are like, yes, can I please just get on the pile of things and make the big explosion? And everybody's got to deal with the aftermath, except she's the one in Volume 2 who has to deal with that. So now it's like, okay, you want to stay like blinded, filtered, only able to do it this way? Or are you aware? Are you growing in your awareness of what's happening and why? So really, for a lot of Volume 3, what I felt was the most valuable was to ask Steve the questions that I felt were coming up and to listen to his answers and then tell him what I thought was coming back up and work in a way that says, look, before I start telling you, I need to show that I'm listening and that I understand, and also that I'm learning from these conversations with you. And that's where I really feel like the collaboration part started to work, because when he would come away and say, yeah, I've been working on some stuff based on what we talked about, that's where it's like, okay, once we have that shared understanding, then the idea of making a handoff at some point is going to be a lot easier. But first, it was just talking about like, yeah, what do you want to do next? And where do you want to go? And how do you feel about that? And then along the way, I've got some questions. What do you think about that? And he'd go away with the questions and we'd come and we'd talk more about it. So that's where I really felt my role initially was. Like, I know this is something you want to start. So let's start by me understanding where you are, where you're going, what you want to do more. And that has evolved as well, right? Like there has been an understanding that's grown from that about, okay, this was going to be a certain length, but now we can see a different length that also allows us to speak to all these different things instead of feeling like, wow, it would have been great if we could have done that, but we ran out of time. It's like, no, right here, right as we're moving into Volume 3. And one of the other things I'd point out is you're going to love seeing the way that now Steve is using color. It's like you're gradually getting this awakening from Joan from Volume 1, 2, and now into 3. And as she's starting to see like, hey, there's more to this world around me than just I'm back and look what I'm going to do. There's other people in this fight. There's actually a bigger role I can play than even what I thought I was doing, which seemed so monumental the first time around. But what I've learned, what I'm growing into, and what I can see myself becoming, that's really part of the beauty of Joan as we move into Volume 3. You know, you're getting to see that understanding, that sense of responsibility that comes with great power, with great authority, with being a symbol that others look to, you know. what kind of a symbol do you want to be? And if it's just one note of anger and things like that, you're only going to reach so much success. But with Joan, one of the great things is watching with Steve and talking with him as he was making these discoveries, and he was understanding not only what he'd done with the character, but what he wanted to do. And it was all there. It was just a matter of like, okay, well, let's talk about how you want to do it. Where can I help? How can I jump in? And yeah, that was what I really felt made it so helpful this time around.
Awesome. All right, we're gonna open up to some questions from our panel, and we weren't able to really introduce everybody, but people who watch our channels here, we got Alan Wu. Alan, go ahead and introduce yourself briefly.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Alan Wu. I'm a comic book writer and a screenwriter as well.
But I'm sorry, I am a little disoriented because our plan for the channel didn't come through. We practiced this before we were preparing for the month of May, and this is our what, fourth years? Our fourth year.
Yeah. Already 4 years.
And now that I see your face, Stephen, I remember you from last year. I had a little stroke last year, so I couldn't be involved. But now I'm starting to remember better. And anyway, I appreciate you guys coming over and sharing your stories. I'm sorry that I'm not able to better host. Anyway, I do have a question. Can I go right to the question? Or yeah. I noticed on your, if you want to show I noticed that you guys call this cowboy manga.
Oh, yeah.
So why is it a manga and not comic book? Is there a difference?
Oh yeah, that's a great question, and because that's kind of timely with all the manga craze going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, okay. There's a couple of factors here. Number one, I like to think of the manga as like it's kind of like it's like symbolic. That's the biggest thing. Okay, with in conjunction with the cowboy. So something I've been I must lecture Seth at this point about Taiwanese history. At this point, Seth is probably clocked in like a PhD in Taiwanese history, and yeah, he's like, yeah. So we have a project we want to work on. It's a young adult story with very anthropomorphic. I like to compare it to like Usagi Yojimbo meets Ruthless Blade. If you haven't seen Ruthless Blade, please check out that animated short by Nicholas Lemary and Tom Bull. It's amazing. So we talked a lot about, mainly me, talked about Taiwanese history, and we talked about how Japan occupied Taiwan from 1895 to the 1940s, mid 1940s. And as a result of that, and as a result of my own upbringing too, my mom's indigenous Taiwanese, and my father has the Chinese ancestral root that comes from the 1600s immigration from General Koxinga. So Taiwan is a pretty mixed population, despite what the news is putting out there as, it's another China fighting against mainland China. And mainland China is a weird term to use because I was never from a mainland China. So, we talked a lot about that. And then I started to think about that. And then my growing up here, like I immigrated from Taiwan, and then ended up with me coming here when I was like 6 years old. And it's a weird thing because all my stuff I did not realize was like a fusion of so many different things. Like we have Transformers here, but so does Japan. And it's just so not, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like this is I'm going to be on soapbox for a little bit. Sometimes I feel like as Americans, we can be in the box and we don't see things outside of us. So we forget where things come from, right? We look at Power Rangers, which is funny because being someone who has relatives who were under the Japanese occupation, they were around manga all the time. So we started talking about this like mixed culture that's going on, right? Like, I'm just as influenced by European comics as I am American comics and manga. Like, I actually started reading Doraemon when I was little. And then Doraemon, all of a sudden, I came here and now I'm reading like Gotham by Gaslight. And then next thing you know, I'm watching Jackie Chan movies when I'm hanging out in LA with my aunt, you know? And then my dad's into Zatoichi. My mom speaks Japanese. My great-grandparents, both sides, the indigenous side and the Chinese side, they can't understand each other. So as part of Imperial Japan, they use Japanese as the lingua franca, right? Yeah. So all of a sudden we're talking. And then I was telling Seth, I go, you know, Samurai Champloo is a template. It is my Bible for how to create things. And one of those things that informed me of how to create, besides the visuals, is Shingo 2's verse. He says Far East style with the spirit of the Wild West. That's my stuff. Yeah, that's exactly what my stuff is. This pose of Joan right here, yes, it's a European historical figure, but this pose is Chow Yun-fat from The First the Better Tomorrow. Yeah, and you know, and this is a samurai, like when they wipe the blood, you know, off their katana. But that's from a movie, and his design, he's Korean, but his from like a like a Korean martial arts movie. But his whole design is from like a Chinese film. I mean, it's just like we're like once you start looking at something, you have to realize not everything just is made in a vacuum. I was on a podcast where someone very, very egregiously said, what happened to great American illustration? Why can't we take it back to great American illustration again? What is this blending things with manga? And I went, well, you wouldn't be saying, let's make comics great again. That's not your platform, would it? You know? So through this conversation with Seth, I don't know if he said it, I said it, whatever it is, but this word cowboy manga just came up, and we're like, that's it. And if people are confused by it, oh well.
I'm not confused. I think it was interesting.
I get it. It's a fusion. It's a fusion of stuff. I you know, it's AAPI Heritage Month, and Seth, I just want to get your take. What were, I guess, you know, we all grew up kind of unknowingly. Because, you know, Transformers, that's, again, Japanese. Larry Hama helped create G.I. Joe. There's all these Asian influences in comic books that kind of get overshadowed, I guess, if you look at properties like Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z. These are global IP properties that came over from the far, or popularized in the Far East. I'm just wondering what where do you kind of draw in inspiration from growing up that comes from like an Asian IP property?
Macross City and Robotech. Yeah, those are my earliest. Actually, I can go back further than that. I would go to G-Force. G-Force.
Oh, yeah.
G-Force. Yeah, G-Force. It spoke to my heart. There was some, I mean, my mom watched the way that I just glommed to the screen. There was something wonderful. From that came Voltron. From that came Robotech. I saw a passion and emotion that I did not see in cartoons that I was raised on otherwise. Mm-hmm. In Robotech, somebody died. I was blown away that a cartoon character could die. I mean, I knew that Bambi's mom could die because this is, but no, in this like futuristic, wildly, like people died, loss was real, suffering was tangible. And it struck me in such a way that I was like, I feel this in my heart. Like there's something about this like gentle quality that we attribute to animation. And yet that like opened this little door for these raw, visceral, mature emotions to come into play. You know, I didn't understand why in the storyline after one of the major arcs is done, The guy who wants the girl who can sing gets her, but he's a drunk. And then I'm watching and I'm getting to understand like all of the deeper complex issues coming. So many of those components came into play for me. So many of those introduced me to something that I was yearning for afterwards.
Yeah.
Anytime I got a chance to find it. I mean, if I suddenly realized that I could stay home sick and miss church and I could watch Robotech that morning, like I was getting way more out of that than I was going to get out of the Sunday service that I was normally just tuning out of, because I had a space cadet mentality of like, oh, I can go to my imagination world here. I don't have to be for any of this, but here I could also, you know, so that was one of my earliest roots. And then I found myself just seeking more of it, and never finding myself sated, right? It's like much like I was talking about Joan early on, it gives you so much that should be enough, unless, of course, you've always been missing it. And then you're like, man, I can't wait for more. Steve can tell you, when he and I meet up, we eat big. We go out, we eat huge amounts of food. And you'd think the next day that we would be disgusted by it. Oh, no, we're already planning the next gigantic, stupid meal, because how can you ever get enough of something so good and wonderful? And for me, that's what it was like. I got that taste of it. It was like my eyes lit up and I went, more, please, more. Right. Yeah. So those were my earliest introductions, and they played such a role. I mean, I'm picking up the new Mad Cave Studios Gotcha Man now that they've got that coming out, you know, and loving the feeling of like, wow, I can hear the theme music playing from G-Force, and I can hear so many of the things that I loved and that spoke to that heart of mine as a kid, that all the people who know me now, you know, they're like, oh yeah, dude, you never grew up. We all know that. It's not a secret. Like, we all know you never grew up, and I'm fine with that. Yeah. But yeah, those were my early introductions, man. They made a difference. And also, it's fun to point out, you'll notice this lovely little tattoo right there. Wow. My wife is Filipina, and we were in the Philippines back in 2018. And since then, I've also really found myself enamored by the history of Filipino representation in comics as it came about in the 70s. And, you know, so many great stories that are coming out now about the creators who, you know, put such an indelible imprint on characters that we know and love and are now finally getting the recognition. So, yeah, those are all great reasons that have brought me in, and those are all the great reasons that continue to keep me in.
Spoken like a true nerd. Alan, do you have any questions for our creatives?
Yeah, I have one that comes to mind, which is like, maybe I don't know, maybe not like the most important question, but because we were talking a little bit about you know, the name of cowboy manga, what do you guys feel about, like, you know, there's some discourse about whether or not you can make manga outside of Japan. I saw a little of that recently, where it's like people have different opinions about how you know, some people say like you have to be like, you know, making the comic like in Japan for a Japanese audience for it to be considered manga, and if you do it otherwise, it's like a manga inspired comic. Just how do you guys feel about this?
You mind if I jump in on this, Steve? Because this is actually something that's been cooking in my brain for a little bit. By the way, we have some guests who are just arriving, so there might be some barking. Apologies. But
the guests are barking.
They are the coolest guests in the world. We have dog fur friends, and yes, we love them. I have a great professor when I was taking my undergrad, and he loved to point out to us that it's so easy to get locked into this idea of what we think we're being aware of and being told, right? Earlier, you were talking about the idea of what was my Far East influence, but that's only if I'm viewing the world from this place and looking at it somewhere else as saying that's far. And he was laughing at us going, hey, did you ever think about the Westerns you grew up on? Many of them were written by someone who came from the East, someone who maybe came from a Jewish heritage, right? That they're coming from a place that we would actually designate the East. And they came here and they weren't telling stories about Western cowboys. They were telling stories from their home countries, Eastern stories told in the West. So then it's like, well, okay, so are these no longer Westerns if they're being told that way? If the people who came from a place that someone else might designate East, does that change their Western quality or their ability to be categorized as a Western? So that's my shift on that, because then I say, okay, well, as I've heard it pointed out, well, are we going to make this like champagne? If it's sparkly, but it comes from Champagne, it in France, it can only be champagne and everything else is just sparkling water, maybe, or sparkling wine. Maybe that's true, but we also feel that we're challenging that idea because it's the spirit behind the creation, right?
Yeah.
It's the spirit of that cowboy aesthetic and that frontier sort of approach. But also we're saying, yeah, are you sure it's a Western? You sure it's not an Eastern? Are you sure manga can only be from one place? So that's where I'm going to chime in on that idea. And I love that professor for putting that in my head, because I always think, yeah, wait, are you sure it's Westerns? Maybe I should start telling people they're really watching Easterns. It might get really fun.
Stephen, how about you? Your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on that. The first one that comes to mind is I love Hiroaki Samura. He makes some crazy stuff. I gotta admit, 90% of that stuff you're just not gonna find on the shelves at like Barnes and Noble. You just can't. But one of the collections, the anthology that Dark Horse had published, this is maybe like over 15 years ago, it was Emerald and Other Short Stories. And Emerald is a Western. Emerald is totally a Western. And it reminds me of when Sergio Leone took on the American Western. And it's so funny because I had an argument with a friend. He's like, no, but the Civil War shows up in The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. I go, yeah, but as a side character, right? If you watch a David Lean Western, Abraham Lincoln's in the movie, the great, Civil War generals are in the movie, but no, it's not in an Italian Western and not in a Japanese manga that's Western influence. They just don't have the history, but they have all the ingredients. They know how the ingredients work. I was actually talking to a Japanese American cafe, but it's an Italian style cafe while I was in Seattle at a convention earlier last month. Okay. And they were talking about the Memphis style. It's like these like the Memphis style is like all the weird just like random assortment of colors mixed together during the 90s, right? And I'm like showing my age here as I'm talking about that, but so they were nerding out with me about it, and it was funny. It was like they called it Memphis style, but it had nothing to do with the fact that they were in Memphis. They just didn't have any. It was I can't remember the artist, but it was a record they were listening to, and they said, that's it, Memphis. That's the new style. And as a result, this group of Italian artists listening to a song decided this is what a Memphis style would look like. Mm-hmm. And I had asked, I was like, yeah, why is it that's okay? And it's like, it's because they understand the inner workings of it. If they can understand how the ingredients are made, they can do a pretty good job. Hence why Taiwanese places are opening up like crazy. Hence why boba went from Taiwan to now Cantonese people are doing it. Vietnamese people do it. And Vietnamese people do it with great like Vietnamese coffee mix. Yeah. It's just because they know what to do with these ingredients. They study it. So when people go, well, manga can't be created outside Japan. Yeah, but that's funny because what's his name? Jiro Taniguchi. He is his stuff did not sell very well in the West or in Japan, and it took him to be recognized in France and Europe of all places for him to actually have a budding career. That was where he went from, okay, I'm kind of doing like crime novels, I don't really want to do it, and he decided, you know what, I'm going to go all in on this slice of life drama. And all of a sudden, like, it was like French people go, oh yeah, we can relate to this. This is exactly the lifestyle that we live. And it's good that you're talking about this stuff. So I don't know. It reminds me of a very ignorant time in my life where I can't believe I said this. I said this to my friend. I go, I'm never going to learn Kung Fu from a white man. And my friend was so offended. He was so angry. And it just turned out, I was like, yeah, like the guy knew what he was doing. So why not just go from there? Yeah. So that's how I feel. It's like, you could say manga has to only be created in Japan. That's okay, fine. But there are people outside of Japan making manga, and they're doing a really great job.
Awesome.
I'm also going to jump in on the Memphis thing, Steve. There's the song "How I Got to Memphis" by Tom T. Hall, which is used in the TV show Newsroom, and in that they're actually asking, "How is it that you kids who don't know a lot, sorry about the dog, can talk about this idea?" And they say, "Look, Memphis isn't a place; it's a state of mind."
Yeah,
okay? That's how he got to Memphis. He fell in love with someone he stayed there because of, and after that, it wasn't about a location. It's not geography.
Yeah,
it's like imagine. It's like passion. It's like anything else. It's a state of mind.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well said. All right, so we're gonna just
before we go, the Kickstarter, when does it start?
It starts so the pre-launch is live now, so you can sign up to get notified. So you can it'll show up in your email when we go live on July 1st. But you have to go to the pre-launch first, to the link, the Kickstarter link, and then just click on the notify me.
Okay, and will we be able to purchase your back issues in this new thing? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the details of the Kickstarter? Can you kind of get into that?
Yeah. So
let's make it quick. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little less barking at the moment. Yeah, so not only do we offer digital versions of all 3 volumes and physical versions of all 3 volumes, but we're also offering some great exclusives. Original stickers, right? We've got original commissions where you can get you or someone you know done in a Joan style, or you can get a commission of your pet done in a specific style, perhaps even Joan style. And there's a few other bonuses that we're going to release to others, like even maybe a very cool sketchbook if we get the numbers right. So here's the way it works. If you want to guarantee, sorry for that screaming raccoon in the background, that is my French bulldog. But if you want to make sure that this Kickstarter goes and that things like the sketchbook are possible, the more followers we get in the pre-launch helps skyrocket us up, and suddenly we can have the chance to become one of those projects that Kickstarter loves, which is what is going to make it possible for us to offer things like the bonus sketchbook available to people.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, so we got the link here in the chat. Go check out the Kickstarter, support it. And this is running until the launch, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, July 1st is when the official launch will occur, but right now the Kickstarter pre-launch is available and we would love your support. We also want you to get in there and start checking things out. Tell us what you're excited about. Tell us what you want to see more. Maybe give us a suggestion, and maybe if there's enough interest, we'll listen and we'll think about adding something in just because you clamored loud enough for it.
Right.
All right.
Well, hey, I know. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, but just want to mention real quick. I did not mention the editor on Joan Volume 2, which is Robert Romeo. He did a really awesome job editing the story. He's one of those guys where he will write you voluminous essays of things that he feels would make the story better. And Joan Volume 3, I think is, I believe is a very strong story. It would not be where it is without the help of Robert Romeo editing it. So just want to mention that out there too.
Wonderful. Well, guys, thank you for joining us this evening. And again, we wish you good luck on this project. Tell us, what's kind of upcoming. Obviously the Kickstarter, but for both of you, are there any upcoming events or appearances that you're going to be making?
Yeah, Seth and I are going to be at Oakland Comic-Con. Which is next weekend. That's coming up. And that'll be
May 9th and 10th.
Yeah, 9th and 10th. And then right after that, I'll be at Motor City Comic-Con. So that's what's going on for this month.
And then if you happen to be in the Reno area in June, Steve and I will be at the Reno Book Fair, June 6th, I believe it is. And you will find me either up there in the Reno area or Steve down in the Bay Area. We are crisscrossing the Pacific Northwest. You will see us and find us.
So Seth, are you based in Reno generally?
San Leandro, San Francisco Bay Area.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Las Vegas, so.
Oh, wonderful! Hey. I was there for Amazing Con and a few other events, so
people
I'll
think
definitely give the word.
people think we're really close, but that's not really the case at all.
You guys are.
Before we go, I want to apologize to you, gentlemen. We did prepare. We advertised to different people, and we're going to have you guys broadcast on multiple channels. It didn't work out that way. This is for the audience. I'm sorry that we were not able to present these gentlemen in a better with the better presentation. I really apologize for that. I'm going to make sure that we have a backup stream set up with the I will make sure that happens, and so that when something like this happens, that we have a backup stream. And I'm going to invite you gentlemen again, if you can, there's time allowed, so that we could have a little something that we could redeem ourselves with.
Yeah, but, let's jump on right before the launch again. That sounds like a good plan. Yeah.
I'm down. Let's do that.
And real quick, guys, in the Instagram chat, can you guys give me your address? Because I want to mail you out some AAPI like gifts, some art. You guys.
Okay.
For just
that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well,
Steven.
appreciate that. Appreciate it, guys. I'm really sorry about this for you guys and for the audience too. So anyway.
We're just glad to be here. Thank you for having us on.
Thank you, guys.
It's been a pleasure. Really wonderful experience.
Thank you so
Great
much.
chat. Can't wait to do it again. I'm excited.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks, guys. All right. We'll see you in the next one. Young, tomorrow morning we've got a guest, right?
11. Yeah, from Jingo from Philippines. So
tomorrow morning at 11 Eastern.
He called himself a mangaka. So like a managa, So.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Hopefully, we'll get our software working then.
Yeah, hopefully. All right. Have a good evening, guys. Thanks for joining again.
Thank you so much.
That was great. Thanks again for having us. It was a treasure.